Good morning, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the 10 kings, and we're going to be talking about the 5 toes of Daniel's statue, and we're going to be talking about the 10 horns. These are all one and the same. We now have them. Everybody in the prophecy community should be ecstatic right now to be able to be living in a time where they're actually seeing this stuff come together and really just coming off the pages of the Bible and being able to come together. Today I'm actually going to show you, I don't do a whole lot of screen shares and things like that, but today I'm going to do some screen shares and show you some information, and this is all we're going to be talking about is these 10 kings, because on January 1, I don't know those of you that have been watching before, and if you're not part of the prophecy community, you should be excited, and if you don't know Jesus Christ, you should be getting saved, because he is soon to come. Maybe even this year, maybe even today, Jesus Christ could come, because we are living in the very last minutes of the last days, and we are seeing the things that are necessary for the time of Jacob's trouble to come together as the day of the Lord nears. So let's take a look at this stuff, because we now have the 10 kings. And I don't know if you guys remember back in, this summer, we were talking about the BRICS summit coming up, and they were going to be adding new members. And if you don't know what BRICS is, it's an acronym that stands for the names of the countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. So that was BRICS. It was the original 5 members of basically a conglomeration of nations, kind of like we do in the G7 or in NATO or anything like that. So it's just basically an association of nations. So it started out with 5 with this BRICS, right? And they announced back in the summer that they were going to add 6 more. They were going to ask 6 more countries to join that had applied, and that was going to be 6. And if you remember, we were hoping for, that 5 were going to join, right? Because that would give us 5 toes and another 5 toes and give us the 10. And, there was always already a whole bunch of rhetoric around how they were going to, those 10 kings, right? Or BRICS, how they wanted to become a new world order and all that stuff. So that was very interesting to us. And in that video, I said, we are living in the last days, so we know that there's not time for others to, and I almost dropped whenever one of the countries mentioned was Egypt, and I'm going to show you why that's important here in just a minute. And I was like, okay, so what's going to happen is, and I've got some friends, that we talk about prophecy a lot, things like that, and they were kind of disappointed. I can understand, because we were, hoping this is it, because we were hoping for Feast of Trumpets rapture, right? And so it was like, man, where are we at on this thing? And I was like, look, something's going to happen. They're only going to end up adding 5, because we know we're at the end. So we know they're only going to add 5. And lo and behold, right here in December, Argentina drops out. And on January 1, 5 countries were added to BRICS. So that's very exciting. And let me just pull up some stuff. All right, so you can see clearly that BRICS now includes Saudi Arabia, Iran, the UAE, Ethiopia, and Egypt. So they added 5. So we had originally 5, and now we have another 5. And and in doing this video, I'm assuming that you guys know what I'm talking about, and so I'm going to go into some stuff here in a minute and explain to you what why this is significant, where it talks about these 10 kings in the Bible, and how we know that this specifically is this 10 kings. And if it's not these 10 kings, then we have no business saying that we're near the end of the world, because all of this stuff has to happen. And I know a lot of Bible prophecy teachers will sit here and talk about how all this stuff just happens in the tribulation, that somehow within a 7-year period, all this stuff is just gonna, come together and happen all at the same time. These things literally slow roll out. It takes a long time to do a lot of this stuff. So I would say, I wouldn't be putting a whole lot of stock in the, like everything happening during just that 7-year period. So there's been a lot of setup. We see a lot of setup. If you've been watching my videos, you can kind of understand that and how things have been progressing and how I know that we're basically here at the end. And but talking about these 10 kings, so now we have the 10, and one of them is Egypt. We're going to talk about how important that is. And let's see, the next thing I want to show you is going to be, let's look at this one that talks about how BRICS is looking to be the new world order, right? So if you could see here, like BRICS 2023 summit seeking an alternative world order. Can BRICS create a new world order? The BRICS expansion is a new world order of strategic something or another. BRICS welcomes new members to push to reshuffle world order, growing BRICS alliance to rival G7-led world order, laying the bricks for a reshaped global order. 6 new countries joining BRICS. That was back in July, showing a changing world order. Is BRICS the new world order? So one thing that you guys might not know is if you do a little bit of research, how many countries, just the original 5 countries, was 30% or more of the global GDP, right? So the gross domestic product of the world, they were 30-40% of it, right? You got 3.47 billion people, just the original 5. So, there's 8 billion people on Earth, right? 3.47 billion of them in just these 5 countries, right, that make up this BRICS. Now, I don't know what the numbers changed to after, as far as GDP, but it's had to go way up with the addition of these new 5 countries. So that's huge. They have the ability to be able to create a new world order. And according to the Bible, they do create a new world order. They do it with the help of the Antichrist. So what we're going to talk about now is I'm just going to kind of show you in the scriptures. Just so you guys know, I had a little bit of a sinus thing yesterday. It's still a little bit there. My eyes are red. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning right now, and I wanted to go ahead and get this video done because there was a couple things that I needed to do, and I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to get the video done if I didn't start early. So started early on it this morning. All right, so let's look at some scriptures. Start with Daniel 2, because Daniel 2 is where we are first introduced in the Bible to this concept of these 10 kings, right? So in Daniel Daniel was one of the Israelis that were actually taken in the when King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon came in, ransacked, and took over Israel and Jerusalem and took a bunch of captives from there. Daniel was one of those that was taken captive. And Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. He had a dream about a statue. And I'll show you a picture of this statue here in a minute. And nobody could actually interpret the dream for him. So, Daniel was able to interpret the dream. He was actually able to give him what the dream was about and interpret it, because he was able to do that because God showed him what that was. And what this statue was a picture of what the main kingdoms on earth from the beginning to the end of when all this thing was. Actually, it was from that time when he was having the dream till the end of the world. And at the bottom of the statue, when you get to the feet are the last kingdom. It was going to be it's the last kingdom before Jesus comes. and destroys basically the kingdoms of the world and takes over for the 1,000-year reign of Christ. And we can see that here in this that says, if you're looking at 32 and 33, this image, his head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, and his legs of iron, and his feet of iron and part of clay. All right, so if I can show you a image of this, you'll get a visual of this. That was in Daniel 2. And these 10 kings that we're talking about are the feet, part of iron and clay. I want you to think about, when you're thinking about this, think 2 feet, right? Because just like, and the precedent we get from this is the legs, right? Was the Roman Empire, and it was ended up split in 2, right? The feet, you have 5 toes, and 10 toes really, but 5 on one foot and 5 on another foot. So think about bricks, 5 and 5. 5 original, then 5 were added, and then iron, part clay. So think of, the Rome was considered iron legs because they were basically all army, very strong, had a very strong army. They were a world power. Where if you look at BRICS, Russia, China, they have some power and they have armies, and even India has a pretty strong army, nuclear weapons, things like that. So you've got some iron there, but countries like South Africa, right? The UAE, Egypt, they're not powers, they're not superpowers, so they're more of the clay. So you've got iron and clay mix. So that works out pretty perfectly there. So let me show you. All right. So here's the image. This is what Nebuchadnezzar saw in his dream, right? He saw the head of gold, the legs of iron, and we're down here at these feet. This is approximately where we're at. All right. This is where we are today. We're right here. But here in Daniel 7, right, we see where Daniel's talking about, he saw an image of the 4 beasts, right? And so part of one of that is in Daniel 7:24, and it talks about these 10 horns, because there was these horns on one of the beasts, and the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them. So the one that arises after them will be the Antichrist, right? So, and the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall arise after them, and that's going to be the Antichrist. Now I'm going to show you where the importance of Egypt comes into this. We're just going to jump to Daniel 11 and see how that Egypt being a part of this is very important, right? So if you haven't read before Daniel 11 talks about these kingdoms, right? And how we progress through history. And you can kind of see, Daniel had prophesied how we would go through all of these things. And it gets down to where it talks about where the kingdom is basically turned over to this to the Antichrist, right? And if you're reading the King James Version, it'll say it like in 21, it starts, and in his estate shall stand up a vile person, right? You guys have heard me talk about this one. This is the leader we have today. Then shall stand up in his estate, the one before him, a raiser of taxes in the glory of the kingdom, which I like some other translations of this, and it talks about a real loser, right, whose reputation is already in shambles, right? That's our illustrious Joe Biden, that old flashbang in there. So, but then his estate shall stand up a vile person to whom there's, they shall not give the honor of the kingdom. So now it's going to start talking about the Antichrist, and it goes through here talks about all these things that he does, and he's always constantly in some sort of war. And what's important about this is, you know, he has to, and I don't know if I brought up, actually, I didn't bring up that, and it may be in here somewhere, and I didn't bring it up, but he does subdue 3 of the kings at one point, right? So he subdues 3 of these kings. And here's where it talks about, if you go through what Daniel's talking about here, it talks about who he goes to war with, right? And it mentions 3 specifically, you know, the king of the south, the king of the north, and Egypt is mentioned by name, right? So I've always believed, even before the BRICS thing, that Russia was the king of the north and Iran was the king of the south, and then Egypt was Egypt. So to me, it is no surprise that with BRICS, and I wasn't even looking at BRICS until this summer, guys. Wasn't even looking at BRICS. So BRICS has Russia, Iran, and now Iran was just added, and Egypt was just added. So now we have the 3 kings that are subdued by the Antichrist. And right here, he shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. Right? So Egypt is actually mentioned by name in here. So I ask you, if this is not it, what other 10 nation conglomeration will actually come together, right, that will want to be a new world order that will actually include Egypt? So, like, what's the chances? What's the chances Egypt was even included in this BRICS, right? I'm sitting here thinking, like, what do they get out of bringing in Egypt into this thing? But they did, because, man, the word of God does not lie, and it's here. So now let's look at Revelations, and what is besides the 10 kings kind of working with, you know, the Antichrist to take over the world and do all of that, what else do they do? Like, what's one thing they mentioned that they would do, and, you know, with the Antichrist? And you guys know that I talk about the U.S. as being the whore of Babylon, which we most certainly are. I mean, if you just take an honest look at Revelation 17, I mean, if you just take an honest look at it, we're the only possibility, right? Like, the whore gets drunk on the blood of the saints, right? So, you know, if you ask somebody, where's most Christians live? United States, right? So if a whore's going to get drunk, she got to get drunk on the blood of the saints. You put everything together about, like, the merchant ships, right, that are all coming, selling all their goods, you know, and then, you know, it's us taking all of these abominable things and spreading it around the world, you know, that's us, right? But here in Revelation 17, it mentions, the beast and the 10 horns you saw will hate the prostitute. They will bring her to ruin and leave her naked. They will eat her flesh and burn her with fire. So here is let me debunk the most popular thing out there that that prophecy teachers and most of the people you'll watch on YouTube, they sling this stuff out there, you know, because they watched the Left Behind series, right? So they read the Left Behind series, and they hear about, you know, they read about, well, the Antichrist creates, you know, goes and rebuilds Babylon and creates him like a sin city, you know, and then they think, oh, well, no, it's just Rome. That's Rome. And, oh, you know, maybe it's, Neom, you know, they're going to build a city. For one, you know, why would the beast build a city, right, that becomes the whore of Babylon, and then go and then he goes and destroys it because he hates it, right? So he goes and builds it and hates the very sin city that he built. That don't make no sense, right? So it can't be a city that he goes and builds. It just cannot be that. It cannot be that. It has to be an entity outside of that. And to be honest, what this sounds like to me, it is the beast and these 10 horns that are wanting to make a new world order go and attack the old world order so that they can be the new world order. And I think that that's what you see happening here. The beast and the 10 horns you saw hate the prostitute. They will bring her to ruin and leave her naked. They will eat her flesh and burn her with fire, right? So that is what happens. And this has to happen early on in the tribulation, because remember that the beast actually subdues 3 of the 10 kings. So he does that early on in the tribulation. So this would have to happen really early on in the tribulation if there's going to be 10 of them that actually do that. And my further proof, I'm telling you that the where is it? Where it says she gets. Let's see. Come and I will show you a punishment of the great prostitute who sits by many waters. We're the only country that sits by many waters. With her, the kings of the earth committed adultery, and the inhabitants of the earth were intoxicated with the wine of her adulteries. That's us. And if you've ever gone like and talked to some of these countries about some of the things, they'll tell you that, they didn't have a lot of the problems they had until America brought all of its porn and all of its drugs and all of that stuff into their countries. There I saw a woman on a scarlet beast that was covered with blasphemous names and had 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was dressed in purple and scarlet and was glittering with gold, precious stones, and pearls. She held a golden cup in her hand filled with abominable things and the filth of her adulteries. The name on her forehead was a mystery. And right here, I saw that the woman was drunk with the blood of God's holy people, the blood of those who bore testimony of Jesus. So this is Christ's fault. These are Christians, right? So she was drunk with the blood of God's holy people, the blood of those who bore testimony to Jesus. So this is us. And I believe that that's going to happen in America this year. So get ready. It's not something that happens for a long time. When you get drunk, you go out to a bar, you go to a party, you start drinking, you get drunk, and then, that it like happened. And I think that's what's going to happen here for a very, very short time. And I think if we relate this back to other things that Jesus said, because everything in the Bible relates back to something else, right? Where it talked about in his letters to the churches about, he's like, hey, some of you are going to be called up, and you're going to go to jail, and you're going to be there for 10 days, and some of you are even going to lose your life, but be faithful until the end, right? And I think it even says, and I'll keep you from the hour, that's coming to judge the whole world. So this stuff all gets put together, but that's what's going to happen there. So, if we have the 10 kings, right, we also got to have an antichrist. It's kind of like, so if you can imagine, you've got now, let's just say that, by adding these new 5, that they somehow are able to add. So let's just imagine that somehow by adding this new 5, now they're up to 6 billion people, right? Maybe they're up to 6 billion people or even 5 billion people. Maybe they're 60% of the global domestic product or 50%, right? So they have that, and now you take the little horn, right? The little horn that comes up among the 10. The little horn. He's not one of the 10. He's the little horn. He comes up among the 10, right? So the Antichrist. Let's just say that Antichrist is now holds the power of Europe, not United States, because we are the world. We are the world order. We are this current world order. Between United States and Europe, we hold the world order, right? So this new thing that's coming is trying to replace the new world order, okay? It is trying to be the new world order or replace the old world order, which is us. So imagine you take somebody that holds the power of Europe, that tries to come up among and is able to wedge himself into or make some sort of negotiate something with this BRICS, right, which holds all of this power, and they actually made some sort of deal. Where would that put the United States? Would you think that would put the United States in any sort of danger? And how many of you guys have ever looked at Emmanuel Macron as a possibility for the... How many of you have ever looked at Emmanuel Macron as a possibility for the Antichrist? Right? I have. Go look at his qualifications for being the Antichrist. Go take a look at this guy's life. Now, I hope he's not, to be honest with you. He seems like an okay guy. The first time I ever saw him and the first time I ever thought that he might be the Antichrist is I was watching, I think I was at a restaurant, and big TV in front of me, and the World Cup had just finished. France, I believe, had just won the World Cup. It was pouring down rain. The soccer players were all lined up on the field. Some of the world leaders were coming out onto the field in the rain to shake their hands. They all had people holding their, umbrellas and stuff over them. Emmanuel Macron, and here's this guy in a suit. I had never seen this guy before in my life, right? He walks out onto the field, and this was back, I think, in 2016, and he walks out on the field, and he's like hugging all of these and shaking hands of all these soccer players. No umbrella, no nothing, just getting soaking wet, getting soaking wet in this suit. And I'm sitting here thinking, this guy is either a really great guy, or he's the Antichrist. I can see like one of us doing that, right? Like, we don't care. We get wet, whatever, but we're also not president of France, right? Like, those people, we always see politicians and presidents and people like that in power as, like they're just, privileged. So you wouldn't see them doing something like that. But I saw that, and ever since then I've been following this guy. And I want you to look at how he never fails me. Like, as I go through all this stuff, this guy never fails me. Like, he is always continually staying in the running to be the Antichrist. So look at this. All right. So Macron, no way. Russia doesn't want French leader at BRICS summit, right? The Kremlin isn't impressed with French President Emmanuel Macron's bid to crash the BRICS summit. So he was trying to get himself into the BRICS summit. Macron would be an inappropriate guest at the BRICS summit. French President Emmanuel Macron would be an inappropriate guest at the BRICS summit. Emmanuel Macron would be an inappropriate guest. Rush says France's participation in BRICS summit would be not good. Let's see. Macron wants to crash summit with Russia, China, and allies. The French president wishes to become the first Western leader to be invited to a BRICS summit. I'm telling you guys, this guy holds the power of Europe right now in his hands. You may not believe it. I know. I think it's actually funny. I got a lot of prophecy people that I watch and stuff like that, and they'll say, "Oh, it's not Macron. He can't even look at him. He's a loser. He doesn't. He can't even. He can't even run France, and But yet he stayed in power, and he's done a lot of stuff. And actually, the Bible even says that the guy's overlooked. I mean, that's what it says about him. I know that people always say like, "Oh no, this guy's gonna be like, just be able to." And which Emmanuel Macron does. They say he can talk people into anything, but he speaks a lot of languages. I mean, he's got all of the qualifications. Trust me, but I mean, it's everything doesn't ever nothing. If you read about nothing ever goes right for this guy. I mean, he's in trouble from day one all the way to the end. It's only with a few people he even rises to power, right? And so maybe he is it. Maybe he's not it. But this just, shake up in world order threatens to weaken West. Attempts to change the existing world order threaten to weaken the West and especially Europe. And so French President Emmanuel Macron said in an conference that's why he's wanting to go. He recognizes the writing on the wall, right? Kind of like I'm a software developer, but with the advent of AI, I can see the writing on the wall, right? So I start preparing. Back in 2008, whenever I was in architecture and doing drafting and design at Heritage Log Homes, I saw the writing on the wall, right? And so I moved quickly to technology, so that I could sustain my family. This is the same thing this guy's doing, right? He is like, hey, I'm going to sustain France. I'm going to see the writing on the wall. I see the weakness in the West, in United States, with this president and him just letting, all these people across the border and all of the things that they're doing. They're, like, hey, a kingdom divided against itself will fall. They see all of this stuff. So he sees the writing on the wall. And if you go and look these up, like Emmanuel Macron and BRICS, this is a really good article, why Macron has a fondness for BRICS. This other one, why Emmanuel Macron wants to go to the BRICS summit. You guys should read those. BRICS expansion could dethrone Europe, and this is what France warns, and he's all over it. So he didn't end up personally getting to go. But they did allow a small delegation from France to attend that summit. So he didn't personally get to go, but they did allow a small delegation to come from there. So, I mean, y'all keep looking at this stuff. I think that this year is going to be very, very interesting. And can you guys believe it? I mean, we are living in the last days, the last minutes of the last days. We have the 10 kings, and man, it's in the Bible, and they just literally just came together, and they're wanting to create a new world order. You've got your little horn, right? Your little Emmanuel Macron trying to come in and be a part of that, right? And there's a lot of interesting things about, why I think France, it's like how you lose your head if you're not part of the, if you don't take the mark of the beast. Where did the guillotine begin? France. That's who invented it. They're the inventors of the guillotine, right? They were the ones that used it first. And so it's interesting. These are all, obviously my opinions, but I'm putting this stuff together as it happens. And we have the 10 kings. It's very exciting. We are living in the last days, and that is why it's important for each and every one of you. If you're watching this and you don't know Jesus, it's very important for you to do whatever you got to do. It's just a free gift. Jesus died on the cross. He died for your sins. Look at this channel, and I want you to watch the video that says, "What is hell really? What is hell really?" Watch that. If you don't know Jesus, click on that video. It's a short video. It's like 3 minutes long. It's on my channel. watch and see what Jesus Christ did for you. It's already done deal. You just need to accept it. That's all you got to do. And if that doesn't get you, go ahead and watch the little animation I did. It's also on my channel called Sin's Restaurant. So watch that, get saved. If you're on this channel and you are saved and you're waiting for Jesus to come and you're excited about Jesus coming, you need to think about people in your family that, or your friends or coworkers that do not know Jesus, and you need to take action. You need to do something. You need to plant some sort of seed. And if you're too afraid to plant a seed, you at least need to write them on your, what I call crops list, your Christ ops list. So get you out a piece of paper or on your phone, on your reminders, and create what's called a crops list, right? So CROPS, crops, right? Christ ops. And create you a list, write those people's name on it, and pray for them that God would send somebody to plant a seed, that he would start doing things in their life to change their life. It works. I'm telling you, it works, because don't hide your talent under, you guys remember the prophecy of the talents, right? Where, the one guy just hid his talent, right? The one that got 5 went out and doubled it. The one that got 3 went out and doubled it. But the one that got 1, he just went and buried it and didn't do anything with it, right? That's not where you want to be. That's not who you want to be. So you need to go do something. And, if you're too afraid to talk to somebody, pray. Here's one thing I do all the time. Buy you some tracts. I got the one that says, "Don't be left behind." It is a Billy Graham track, and it's really good. And I keep those in my truck. And whenever I get gas, I get my gas and I take that little track and I fold it up and I put it right in the handle of the gas pump, right? So you can do that. And you don't know where that'll go. You don't know if somebody reads that, gets saved, and then, 5 more of their family members get saved. We're living in the last days. We have to do something. That is why it is 5:30 in the morning, and, I'm up making this video for you guys. I don't get anything for this. I don't get any compensation. I don't run into any of you guys. Any of you guys on this, I don't know you. I'll probably never even meet you until we're in glory, right? So there's nothing for me in this other than me wanting to not hide my talent and do what God wants me to do, and just plain and simple. That's what I want to do. But before I forget, I'm still be on reading some of these poems, I guess, and I didn't pick out any of them this morning to read. This is one of my favorites. I don't know if I've read it before on here, but it's called Reality. Life is stretched from all boundaries of light, for I am a hero. I walk with the greatest of confidence and poise, for my manners come from the highest walk, with landings that reach the highest peak of the lowest plain, sailing the winds of an arctic breeze or just a quiet sunset. For I am a pillar with the courage to succeed, for this was all brought forth from a dream. So that is today's poem from this thing. So I figure, hey, we're in the last days. 20-something, 27 years, I've never done anything with these, or nobody's ever even seen them other than maybe myself and my mom. So my dad doesn't even know I've written those or ever seen them. So I figured, well, heck, we're in the last days. We're in the last minutes of the last days. Might as well go ahead and read them. So hope you guys got something out of this, and we'll see what happens next week. But, I don't want to make a video for no reason at all. And even though we're in the last days, I wouldn't expect something to happen every single week. We did have a ton of things going on there for a while. I mean, it was just like one thing after another, after another, after another. But, it was like I was talking to a friend yesterday, and it was like, well, there's not a lot. He was like, well, there's not a lot going on in the prophecy, world right now. And I was like, I was like, we're so desensitized, man. I was like, other than the fact that the 10 kings were formed from Revelation and Daniel this week, I mean, like, that's colossal. That is absolutely colossal. So, look, just hang in there. We're getting through this thing. I don't know. I won't just make videos to make them. I don't want to get laxed in making them. Like I guess there's content I can do, but we'll see what goes on. I wouldn't expect something to happen every single week, but we are getting close. If I was watching for anything right now, I'd be watching for any kind of formation of Ezekiel 38, right? And the countries that are supposed to be doing that, which looks like Vladimir Putin has just become the president of BRICS at this point. So he is the current reigning president of BRICS. They are actually going to be part of the Ezekiel 38 war. That is going to happen. And so we have that going on. And I would be looking for tension here in the U.S. that would cause them to use these 86,000, IRS agents and $4 billion worth of ammo and guns and stuff like that they have armed actually the EPA and the IRS with, to be coming after Christians to round us up. And looks like some of us will end up going to jail. So it's like it'll be the YouTubers probably go first. As they start going down, then that's when you probably should start looking for a place to hide. I would say the ones in the blue states at this point. So I think might be protected in some of the red states. So I don't know. So let's look for those. But I'm sure there's other things going on. Look forward to hearing your comments. I'll be monitoring all of the other guys that are in the prophecy space to see what they come up with, and we're all crowdsourcing this thing. Be a watchman. Warn people when you see things coming, and look forward to maybe next year at this time we'll be in heaven.